Welcome to the AskJT podcast, where we simplify tax, finance, and business decisions for UK business owners. I'm Justin Turner, an accountant, business owner, and author. I'm going to share practical advice and help you run your business more efficiently and keep more of what you earn. According to a recent BBC News report, most self-employed people in the UK have no pension savings at all. None. Zero. And honestly, I get it. It's really, really hard because when you're saving like £100 a month, the first £1,000 that you save, it's like pushing a boulder up a hill. It's incredibly difficult, and no one talks about this concept. And what you're waiting for is something called scale of capital to kick in. And this is where we're pushing that boulder up the hill, and all of a sudden we crest the top of the hill and the boulder can freely roll down and it starts gathering momentum. It's like pushing a snowball downhill. It starts building. And that's where I want to talk to you about today, is I want to break down about actually why saving should feel hopeful, when the magic is going to start, and when you're going to see real momentum in your pension and ISA. Hi, I'm Justin from AskJT, and today we're digging into one of the most powerful and underused and under-discussed wealth building methods. So I hope you're going to really enjoy today's episode. And what we're talking about is scale of capital. Scale of capital, this doesn't sound very thrilling at all. And if you search in YouTube for scale of capital, nothing really comes up. And that's because most people are interested in the crypto rocket, how to get rich quickly in your business. How can you double your business overnight or 10 times your wealth? You know, this isn't actually how we build real lower risk wealth. We need to think about kind of smaller returns. And I want to talk to you about a really small scale example of, let's say you can save £100 a month into a pension or ISA, and that you're hopefully going to get 10% returns on that as well. And that's I'm just using historical stock market averages to give you that 10% return. So what happens in the first year of when you start saving is, if you're contributing £100 a month, then it's £1,200 of contributions, isn't it? And with compound growth, so your returns that you're going to get in that first year, that could be around £1,260. And it's barely noticeable. £60 return, it's not very exciting, is it? It takes you 10 months just to reach that first £1,000. And it's like watching paint dry. It is so dull. It's so boring. But this is where things start to get a bit more interesting. If we introduce you to something called the rule of 72. Now, if you take 72 and divide it by the interest rate, so in this case, 10%, it will give you a rough kind of judge of how long it takes you to double your money. So at 10%, you will double your money every 7.2 years. So by the time you actually eventually save £10,000, and if you've left it untouched, it quickly starts to snowball and become £20,000, then £40,000, and then £80,000, and so on, without actually any new contributions. And that's because the scale of what we've got is bigger. And we know, because of the rule of 72, that at 10%, we're going to double our money every 7 years. And there's a clue. So why don't we have a look at this step by step so you can really, really understand it? So £100 a month, 10% returns. We know by year 7 that you've got £10,000 saved. What happens? How long does it take you to get to the next £10,000? Actually, you get there by year 10. Only 3 years later, you've saved £20,000. It takes you all the way to year 23 to save £100,000. And £100,000 is where things really start to get interesting, because actually by year 29, so not that much longer between year 23 and year 29, you've got £200,000. Isn't that amazing? And let's say, if you work this model on 35 years, what do you have by the end of 35 years? Well, you've got £371,719, nearly, just above £370,000. Isn't that amazing? What were the total contributions in that 35-year period? That was only £42,000. But by year 23, your investment returns are delivering more than your entire kind of input in that first 7 years of savings. By year 29, you're earning £20,000 a year in in returns alone. And this is scale of capital kicking in. And this is where, let's say you're a limited company director, and I've got a video to that. I'll link that as well for pension contributions to limited companies. And, let's say you were contributing £300 into a month into a pension. That's £3,600 a year, which that's getting corporation tax relief. Great. And if you're an individual, you might be getting personal tax benefits. Actually, let's run that scenario through again. 10% returns. Actually, year 7, we're at £30,000. Year 14, we're at £100,000. By just year 19, we're at £200,000. So only 5 years later, you've made the next £100,000. And by year 35, you've got just over £1.1 million saved. Well, you've only contributed £126,000 over that 35-year period. And I think this is the trick here, is the first £100,000 that you are going to save takes time. But the last £100,000 that arrives in your investment account, in that example I've just given you at £300 a month, by the time you're in the last 2 years of that 35-year cycle, you make another £100,000 in just 2 years, just the returns in 2 years. And that's about the scale of what you've got, because it fundamentally, the more you've got, although the return percentage is the same, that you're just getting bigger returns basically, and it starts to snowball. And I can't remember who said it, but as someone said, compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world, and it really is, because it really starts snowballing. I'll give you a quick example with a client. Client came to me and said, "Look, Justin, we've been saving all our life. We're in retirement now. I've got £1 million in my ISAs between me and my wife, and I've been giving £1,000 to my 2 daughters every single month, but the ISAs are still increasing, and it's because of scale of capital." Isn't that interesting? The problem is most people don't ever save enough consistently to really see it. And that's why I don't think it's talked about. People get to year 5 and then they're like, I might buy a bigger house, and they take the money out the ISAs. And this isn't where true wealth is built. You need to have this absolute discipline to save regularly. If you're self-employed or a company director, why am I talking to company directors and self-employed people? It's because you're not going to be handed a pension pot at the end of the day. Most people who are employed have auto-enrollment pensions, and their employer are contributing something into it. So you've got to take your own steps to contribute to your own retirement. And whether that's ISAs or pensions or whatever you want to do, you need to be doing something. I'm really keen on pensions because of tax relief, and it's a great structure for retirement. It's locking it away as well, so you can't get your hands onto it, which there's no way you can just dip into it because you fancy a newer house or anything like that. But I need you to be acting smart, and I need you to be saving straight away. And I think that's the important thing, is think about how you are going to fund your retirement. And, with the numbers, you might be listening to me today, just in the £100,000, that's a huge amount of money. It's really not. If you're thinking about retirement, you're going to need much more than that. And the sooner you start, the better. Because ultimately, if you're thinking about retiring in 10 years down the line, you're probably thinking, actually, I need to contribute more per month. If you're young and you've got a whole 35 years to retire, then you probably can go a bit slower. The important thing is it's consistency. Whether it's £100 or £300, then just start it today and start saving and start building for your future. It is really, really important. I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and I hope it's given you some ideas about scale of capital. Please consider subscribing. It makes a massive, massive difference. So please do that. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the AskJT podcast. Subscribe for a weekly episode, and if you found this useful, share it with a fellow business owner who might benefit.